Hi, my name is Sophie, and I'm 28. Right now, I'm standing at my window, looking down at Paris beneath me. So beautiful, so alive, and I've never felt more alone. You know that feeling when you finally find someone who sees the real you, like the actual you beneath all the layers, and you trust them? But then they see something else, something you can't erase, and suddenly you're not who they thought you were. I never thought the truth could break someone I love this much. And now, I'm not sure how to fix it, or even if I can. Anyway, before I dive deeper into this mess, grab your coffee, settle in comfortably, because trust me, it's gonna get complicated. If you're feeling this journey with me, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to keep up, and please, seriously, drop me a comment below. How would you handle something like this? I could honestly use your advice right now. The city of lights is a lie. I stand at my hotel window, gazing down at the glittering streets of Paris, feeling the cold glass beneath my fingertips, the hum of the city below almost vibrating through the walls. It's beautiful, isn't it? The kind of beauty you only see in movies or in Instagram posts. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, I'm empty, surrounded by luxury and opulence, yet more alone than I've ever been in my life. I never imagined I'd be here, looking out at this city, this life, feeling like I'm drowning in it. Does anyone really see me? I think, as my reflection in the window flickers for a second. I almost expect it to answer me back. But no, it's just a shadow of who I am now. His name is Lucas. And when our eyes met for the first time, something shifted in me. Like a string that had been pulled tight for so long finally snapping. I wasn't sure if it was just the adrenaline or the way he looked at me like I was someone worth knowing. But I hadn't felt like that in years. In fact, I didn't even remember what it felt like to be seen properly. Like I wasn't just a face in the crowd, a body to be used, a person who didn't matter. He smiled at me. A genuine smile, not the kind I was used to. We talked for a few minutes, just words really, nothing extraordinary. But in that moment, I felt something. It felt like trust, like warmth, something real. And I should have known better than to get close to it. But I didn't care. I wanted to feel that warmth. So I let myself go, for once. But the truth always catches up with you, doesn't it? As the night wore on, I started to get that familiar feeling in my gut, the one that told me this was too good to last. People like me don't get to have these moments, the ones where someone looks at you and sees something worth holding on to. I didn't know it then, but I was already falling for him, and I didn't even realize it until it was too late. As I turn from the window, the city still glimmering below, a thought creeps into my mind. What happens when he finds out? I don't have an answer yet, but I'm sure I will soon. I've spent years building this version of me, the one people see, perfectly put together, stylish, untouchable. No one looks beyond the exterior. No one knows what's hidden. No one sees the girl who used to dream, the girl who once believed love wasn't just a lie people told to fill the silence. And definitely, no one sees the girl who's been broken more times than I can count. I've gotten so good at pretending, I almost believe it myself sometimes. Almost. But then there's him. I met him in that underground club, the one nobody talks about, not the high-end ones with VIPs and champagne towers. No, this place is different. People come here to forget, to lose themselves. The music pounds through the floors, a blur of lights and bodies moving in sync. That's where I first saw him. I saw him again a week later. He wasn't supposed to be there, at the art gallery opening. But there he was, standing by one of the paintings, looking as out of place as I felt. The soft, golden light of the gallery was warm, almost too warm, making everything feel like it could be real. Like it was a dream. I didn't know how he had found out about the exhibition. He didn't strike me as the art type, especially not in this world. But there he was, wearing a simple jacket, and those eyes that seemed to see through everything, even through the walls I'd so carefully built around myself. "Are you stalking me?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. I felt ridiculous the moment the words left my mouth. He turned and smiled, that same smile that made my heart race every single time. "I like your art," he said simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't help it. I smiled back, caught off guard by his straightforwardness. His presence was magnetic. It was the way he spoke, the calm that radiated from him. And despite myself, I felt something stir, something I had buried so deeply that I had forgotten what it even looked like. "Why?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Why would you like something like this?" I knew what I meant. The art wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of thing rich people would hang in their penthouses. It was raw, unfiltered, much like me in some ways. But I didn't expect him to understand. Not really. He took a step closer, his voice softer. "Because it's real," he said, his eyes searching mine. "It's not about beauty, it's about honesty." His words hit me harder than I expected. He didn't just see the art. He saw me. Really saw me. I didn't know what to say after that, so I didn't say anything. Instead, we stood there for a while, the noise of the gallery around us. But for me, it felt like everything else had faded away. For once, I didn't have to pretend. Not with him. But of course, it wasn't that simple, was it? Nothing ever is. Later that evening, as the gallery filled with more guests, we found ourselves alone on the terrace, looking out over the city. The air was crisp, and the lights from the Eiffel Tower flickered in the distance, as if they were part of the night itself. "I don't usually do this," I said suddenly, breaking the silence. I wasn't sure why I felt the need to say it, but the words just spilled out. "Get close to people, I mean." He didn't seem surprised. His gaze was steady, never judging, only understanding. Why not? I wanted to tell him. To spill it all. To tell him about the nights I spent trying to forget, the lives I'd lived in the shadows, the people who had shaped me into something I barely recognized anymore. But I didn't. Instead, I looked out over the city again, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't let him in. Not like this. He didn't deserve that kind of darkness. And yet, I felt it. The pull. The tug in my chest, like a part of me was already lost to him. "Maybe because it's easier to be alone," I muttered, more to myself than to him. He didn't answer right away, but when he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, gentler. "Maybe it's easier, but it's not better." There it was. The truth I didn't want to hear. The days after the gallery opening passed in a blur. I told myself I wasn't thinking about Lucas. How could I? He was just a guy I met in a club, a distraction. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The way his eyes looked at me, as if he was waiting for me to be something more than just the mask I wore every day. And yet, I still had to keep the mask on. I had no choice. The life I lived, the one I built around myself, wasn't something I could simply walk away from. No matter how much I wanted to, there were chains that held me in place. Chains that I'd forged myself. The call came that evening, while I was sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the blank wall across from me. It was Mark. I hated the sound of his voice, the way it twisted everything he said into something dark and controlling. "You think you can just leave this life, Sophie?" he sneered, his voice dripping with menace. "You think you can escape everything that's been done to you?" I didn't answer at first. I didn't have to. I knew exactly what he meant. I knew exactly what he was threatening. My past wasn't a thing I could outrun, no matter how far I tried to go. "Don't make me remind you, sweetheart," Mark continued, his voice colder now. "You belong to me, I own you." His words hit me like a slap. I wanted to scream, to hang up, but I didn't. I couldn't. I just listened, letting the weight of it press down on me, pushing me further into the corner I had been trying to escape from. Later, when I saw Lucas again, I knew I couldn't avoid telling him. Not anymore. I invited him to a small cafe I frequented, a place where I could keep the walls up a little longer, just in case. It was quiet, intimate, with soft lighting that hid the cracks in the walls and the old wood floors. The perfect place to keep secrets. "Lucas," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. I looked at him, searching for any sign that he would understand. "There's something I need to tell you, something about me, about my past." His gaze didn't waver. He was patient, waiting. I could see the concern in his eyes, but it didn't scare me. Not yet. I took a deep breath and let the words come out in a rush, like a dam breaking. "I wasn't always like this. The life I have now, the one I'm pretending to live, it's not real. It's not who I am. And I've done things I'm not proud of." I paused, feeling the weight of the confession settle heavily between us. His silence stretched on longer than I wanted, but I didn't rush him. I knew what I had just said. I knew it changed everything. "You don't have to say anything," I whispered, my eyes brimming with tears I couldn't let fall. "I just needed you to know, to understand." For a moment, there was only the soft clink of cups being set down in the background, the world continuing as it always did, as if nothing had changed. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not going anywhere, Sophie." It was the last thing I expected. He wasn't angry, wasn't disgusted. He just understood. And for a brief, fragile moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I could finally be something more than the person I had become. But the truth was, no matter how much he might accept me, I could never escape the consequences of the choices I had made. Not in the way I wanted to. The past was never far behind, and it was already catching up with me. Days blurred into nights, and for a while, it seemed like I might be able to build something real with Lucas. The tension between us, that electric pull, seemed to fade into the background as we spent more time together. Casual dinners, long walks around the city, art shows. For a brief moment, I almost felt normal. Almost. But I should have known better. There was always a weight hanging over me. Mark's calls kept coming, constant reminders of who I used to be, of what I couldn't escape. And then there was the nagging doubt that clawed at me every time Lucas smiled or looked at me too closely. Did he really know me? Or was I just a temporary distraction? It wasn't that I didn't trust him. It was more that I didn't trust myself. How could I let someone in? Someone who could see me. Not the fake version I showed the world, but the one I buried so deep. Even I barely recognized her anymore. One evening, as we walked through a park near his apartment, Lucas suddenly stopped and turned to me. His eyes were searching, like he was looking for something I didn't want to show. "Sophie," he said, his voice steady, but his hands clenched at his sides. "I need to ask you something." I froze. This wasn't how I had imagined this conversation going. I should have been the one asking the hard questions. I was the one with secrets, with a past that could ruin everything. "Go ahead," I said, trying to sound casual. But my throat was tight, my heart hammering in my chest. He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about everything you told me, about your past, and I want to believe you. I do. But I can't help but wonder. What if you're still hiding something? Something you haven't told me yet?" The air between us shifted. I could feel the tension crackling in the silence, each word carrying more weight than the last. I wanted to deny it, to tell him that there was nothing more, that I was just trying to start over, to leave it all behind. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "Lucas," I started, my voice quieter than I intended. There's more. There always will be. Things I can't undo. Things that no one can forget. Not even me. His eyes softened, but there was something else there too. Something I hadn't expected. Fear. He was scared. Scared that maybe I wasn't who I said I was. Scared that the woman standing in front of him wasn't the same person he had started to care about. Why didn't you tell me sooner? His voice cracked, just slightly. Why did you wait until I was already involved? I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. There was nothing I could say to undo the damage, to fix the cracks that were now showing. Instead, we stood there, the sound of distant footsteps and the rustling of leaves the only noise in the stillness between us. The park, so full of life just moments ago, felt empty now, and for the first time, I realized how much I had already lost. I wanted to apologize, to beg him to understand, but I didn't, not yet. You can't change the past, Sophie, Lucas said quietly, his eyes locked onto mine, filled with something I couldn't name. But I can't keep living in the shadow of it either. That was the moment I knew. The moment I realized the truth of it all. No matter how much he might want to stay, I had already lost him. But I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. The days following that conversation with Lucas felt like I was walking through fog. Everything seemed distant, as though the city had shifted out of focus, leaving me in a blur of half-formed thoughts and quiet moments. I knew the truth. I had pushed him away, but part of me refused to accept it. He had told me that he wasn't leaving, but the cracks were growing wider with every word we didn't say. I threw myself into the cafe and gallery, desperate to create something that felt real, something I could control. At least there, I could hide behind the walls of my little world. No one knew about the darkness I carried. No one knew the history that I had tried to bury. But the cafe, my sanctuary, wasn't enough to block out the noise in my head or the persistent thoughts of Lucas. The opening night of a new exhibition was approaching, and I was determined to make it a success. The space was modest, filled with raw, unfinished works, much like the art I created within myself. It felt like the right place to put my heart on display, something for people to see, without the masks. But then, Mark showed up. I didn't see him at first, his presence blending into the crowd like a shadow. But I felt it. That cold, crawling feeling that always followed him. It was like the air had suddenly thickened around me, and I turned, just in time to catch his eyes across the room. "Nice place," Mark said, his voice smooth and casual, but the edge was unmistakable. "I'm surprised you're still playing at this art thing. Thought you'd be back in the real world by now." I didn't say anything at first. I didn't have to. His words alone were enough to sting, to remind me of what I had tried to leave behind. He wasn't just here for a visit. He was here to remind me of my place in the world. "Don't you have something better to do?" I replied, the sarcasm in my voice barely concealing the anger that simmered beneath. "You've always been good at staying in the background, right?" Mark's smile faltered for just a moment, but it quickly returned. "You know, Sophie," he said, taking a slow step toward me, "I've been thinking. You're slipping away from the life you've built, but you don't get to do that, not without paying the price." My heart pounded in my chest, but I refused to show any fear. The last thing I needed was for him to see how much his words affected me. He could try to manipulate me all he wanted, but I wasn't the same girl who had let him control her before. "You're wrong," I said, my voice firm, more certain than I felt. "I'm not slipping. I'm building something new, something that doesn't need you or anyone else." Mark's expression shifted, darkening, as if my words had triggered something in him. "We'll see about that," he muttered, before turning and disappearing into the crowd. I watched him go, my heart still racing, but the fire in my chest wouldn't die. I had always been afraid of him, of what he could do, but not anymore. I wasn't going to let him control me again. Not this time. That night, as I watched the last of the guests leave, I realized something. For the first time in a long while, I felt alive. I felt like I was in control. Maybe the past would always be there, lurking in the shadows, but I didn't have to let it define me. I had a choice now, and I wasn't going to back down. The next day, Lucas came to the cafe. He didn't say anything at first. He just sat across from me, his eyes scanning the walls of the gallery, taking in the art. There was no awkwardness this time, no weight in the air between us. I could feel his presence, calm and steady, but there was something different now. "You don't have to prove anything to me," Lucas said quietly, breaking the silence. His voice was soft but certain, as if he already knew the battle I was fighting. "You've already done enough." His words made something inside me tighten. It was the first time someone had looked at me and seen all of me, my flaws, my mistakes, and my strength. "You don't understand," I said, my voice wavering slightly. "I can't just let it go. I can't pretend the past didn't happen." He nodded, his gaze never leaving mine. "I don't need you to forget. I just need you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, not unless you push me away." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to pull him closer, to cling to the warmth he offered. But another part, the part I didn't want to admit was still there, was scared. Scared that I wasn't enough, that I'd never be enough. But I had come too far to back down now, and for the first time, I wasn't willing to let fear control me. The cafe had become my refuge. Every corner, every brushstroke on the walls felt like a piece of me, raw, unpolished, and real. It was a space where I could breathe without the weight of my past pressing down on me. But even here, in the safety of my little world, there were still echoes of the life I had tried so hard to leave behind. It wasn't just Mark anymore. It was the entire world, the constant reminder that nothing comes without a price. I had been building something new, something that could give me the freedom I'd always craved. But with each small victory came the realization that my past wasn't going to stay buried forever. That truth hit me like a ton of bricks one late evening, when the sound of a ringing phone shattered the silence of the cafe. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew who it was before I even answered. "Don't think you've gotten away, Sophie." Mark's voice was low, almost a whisper, but it still made my skin crawl. "I haven't forgotten you, and neither has anyone else." I could hear the smile in his voice, the one that always made my stomach twist. My hands gripped the phone tighter, but I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I had nothing left to say to him. "You don't belong in that cafe, Sophie," he continued. "You think you've built something, but you're just a toy. And toys are meant to be played with until they break." I wanted to hang up, to shut him out of my life completely, but the words wouldn't leave my mind. I couldn't escape him. Not yet. "Leave me alone," I finally managed, my voice trembling with the weight of the anger and fear I hadn't been able to shake. "I'm done with you." The line went silent for a long moment, and when Mark finally spoke again, it was with a dangerous calm. "We'll see how done you are, Sophie. The past doesn't just disappear." I hung up, but his words lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. I slammed the phone down on the counter, my heart pounding. I had tried to distance myself from him, to make a life that was mine and mine alone, but it wasn't that simple. It never was. The next morning, I went to the cafe early, hoping to lose myself in the work. I needed to focus, to distract myself from the storm that was brewing. But when I walked in, I saw him. Lucas. Standing there, looking at the paintings on the wall, the same quiet intensity in his eyes that had drawn me to him from the start. For a moment, I stood there, frozen. I hadn't expected him to show up today, not after everything. But there he was, as steady as ever. "You okay?" he asked, without looking up from the painting in front of him. I didn't know what to say. The weight of everything was crashing down on me, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep pretending to be okay. I wasn't okay. I hadn't been for a long time. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Just busy." Lucas didn't buy it. He turned to face me, his eyes searching mine. "You don't have to keep lying to me, Sophie." The words hit me harder than I expected. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? That Mark was threatening me again? That I was stuck, trapped in a life I had tried so hard to escape? "You don't have to face this alone," Lucas said, stepping closer. "You know that, right?" I shook my head, the tears threatening to spill over. "I don't deserve your help, Lucas. You don't know what I've done, what I've been through." He reached out, gently touching my arm, and I felt a warmth spread through me. It was like a lifeline in the middle of a storm. For the first time in a long while, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't alone. "I don't care about your past," Lucas said softly. "I care about you, what we have right now, and that's enough for me." His words were like a balm to my bruised soul, but they also scared me. I wasn't sure if I could accept that kind of love. I wasn't sure I could be worthy of it. But as I looked into his eyes, I realized something. Maybe I didn't have to be perfect. Maybe I could still find a way to move forward. "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But I want to try." Lucas smiled, the warmth of it making my chest tighten. "That's all I need. Just try." It wasn't a promise. It wasn't an answer. But it was a start. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could find a way out of the darkness. I tried to pretend that Mark's words hadn't taken root in me, but they had. The shadow of his threats loomed over everything, every decision, every smile Lucas gave me, every quiet moment I spent at the cafe. I tried to keep moving forward, keep pretending that I was okay, that I could handle this new life I was building. But inside, I was breaking. I couldn't let go of the past, no matter how much I wanted to. It was a Thursday evening when I found myself standing in front of the cafe, just staring at the door. The city was alive around me, people moving in and out of restaurants, laughing, chatting, walking hand in hand. But here I was, stuck in this world of my own making, unable to move forward or back. The weight of everything was unbearable. And then, as if on cue, I heard it. The faint sound of footsteps behind me, the soft scrape of shoes on the pavement. I turned, and there he was. Mark. His presence hit me like a freight train, and before I could even process what was happening, he was standing too close, blocking my way. He had that same smirk on his face, the one that made me feel like a little girl, powerless and small. "You think you can just walk away, Sophie?" he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can leave all of this behind?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the words died in my throat. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't deny the truth of it. He had always been there, always lurking in the background of my life, pulling the strings. "I'm done with you, Mark," I said finally, forcing the words out. "You have no hold over me anymore." He chuckled, the sound low and menacing. "Is that what you tell yourself? Because I'm not the one who decides when this is over, Sophie. You'll come crawling back eventually, like you always do." The sharp sting of his words hit me harder than I wanted to admit, but I wasn't about to let him see it. I squared my shoulders, lifting my chin just slightly, a gesture that I hoped would show him that I wasn't scared. "I'm not coming back," I said, this time with more conviction. "I'm done with you." Mark's smile faded, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. He stepped back slightly, his gaze narrowing. "You're making a mistake, Sophie," he warned, his voice low. "You'll regret this." I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. He could threaten me all he wanted, but it didn't matter anymore. He couldn't control me. Not anymore. As Mark walked away, the weight in my chest lightened, just a little. It wasn't over, I knew that. I wasn't naive enough to think that Mark would just disappear. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was taking control of my life. I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting. Later that night, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. She looked different, stronger, but there was still that flicker of fear in her eyes, that fear of being found, of being exposed for who she really was. I reached out, my fingers grazing the cold surface of the mirror, as if I could somehow touch the person I wanted to be. The person who wasn't defined by her past, by the choices she had made. But I knew it wouldn't be that easy. I knew the scars wouldn't fade just because I decided they should. They would always be there, lurking beneath the surface. I wasn't sure what the future held. I wasn't sure if I would ever truly be free of the past. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let it define me. Not anymore. The next day, I saw Lucas again. This time, there was no hesitation. I didn't wait for the perfect moment or try to hide behind my walls. I just went to him because I needed him to know. "I'm not perfect," I said, my voice steady but full of uncertainty. "I have so much baggage, so much darkness inside of me that I don't even know how to deal with. But I'm trying. I'm trying to be better." Lucas looked at me, his gaze unwavering, and for a moment, the world around us seemed to disappear. "You don't have to be perfect, Sophie," he said softly. "You just have to be real." And in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't have to hide anymore. I didn't have to be afraid of what I had been or what I could become. I could face it all. And for the first time, I actually believed that maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to move forward. I thought that I could finally breathe. I thought that after confronting Mark, after facing my past, I might have won. Just a little bit. The cafe was buzzing with energy the next morning, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air, and for a moment, everything seemed normal. But nothing ever stays that simple, does it? The door to the cafe opened, and I looked up, expecting to see a familiar face. Instead, it was someone I hadn't expected, someone who wasn't supposed to be here. Mark. He walked in like he owned the place, his presence instantly filling the room with a sense of danger. The buzz of the cafe seemed to die down just a little, the people around me oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I couldn't move. For a second, my heart skipped a beat and I wanted to turn and run. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not again. He made his way to the counter with that slow, confident gait of his eyes scanning the room. And when they locked onto mine, I could feel the weight of his stare like a heavy, suffocating pressure. "Nice place you've got here, Sophie," he said, his voice smooth, as though nothing had happened between us. "I always did know you had a good eye for this sort of thing." I could hear the mockery in his words, the subtle way he was trying to remind me of my past, of who I was before all of this. But I wasn't going to let him have that power over me. Not today. "Why are you here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My fingers gripped the counter beneath me, knuckles white with tension. Mark smiled, that familiar, infuriating smile. "I just came to talk, Sophie. I thought we could work something out." I felt my stomach turn. There was no talking to him. There was nothing to work out. "You've got nothing to say that I want to hear," I replied, my voice firm. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough for only me to hear. "You can pretend all you want, but you know you're not done with me. You know you can't escape. Not really. You'll come back to me, Sophie. You always do. His words hit me harder than I cared to admit. For a moment, all the progress I'd made seemed to evaporate. But no, I wouldn't let him win. Not again. I stood up straighter, meeting his gaze without flinching. I'm not coming back, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. And I don't need you anymore. Mark stared at me for a moment, his eyes darkening, and then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving the door swinging behind him. The air felt heavy as the door clicked shut, the silence stretching between me and the rest of the world. I wasn't sure if I had just won or if I had just made things worse, but I wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not when I had come so far. I looked around the cafe, the faces of my regular customers and the new ones all busy in their own little worlds. They had no idea what had just happened, and maybe that was for the best. But I felt the weight of it all, the danger, the fear, the uncertainty. Mark had shown me that no matter how much I tried to escape, he would always be there, lurking just beyond the corner of my mind. But then Lucas came in. His warm, steady presence was like a light cutting through the darkness. He walked up to me with that familiar, knowing look in his eyes. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, concerned but gentle. I nodded, forcing a smile, but the knot in my chest hadn't loosened. "I'm fine," I lied, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. It's complicated." He didn't push. Instead, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face in a gesture that was tender, comforting. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said softly. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I let my guard down. I closed my eyes for a moment, taking in his warmth, his quiet strength. This was what I had wanted all along. Someone who could see me, really see me, and not run. Someone who wasn't afraid of the mess I carried with me. "I'm scared, Lucas," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to get past this, how to get past him." He didn't hesitate. "We'll figure it out," he said simply. "Together." His words felt like a promise, one I wasn't sure I deserved, but one that gave me hope all the same. And as I looked at him, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to move forward. I wasn't alone in this. Not anymore. It's funny how the things you're most afraid of can sometimes be the very things that set you free. I had spent so many years hiding, pretending that everything was fine, that I could control it all. But no matter how many walls I built, no matter how many times I ran, the truth always had a way of catching up to me. And it wasn't until that night, when the gallery was packed with people, the air buzzing with conversation, laughter, the clinking of glasses, that I finally decided to face it head-on. I had invited people from all walks of life to my exhibition, not just art lovers or critics, but everyone who had become part of this strange, new world I was building for myself. The cafe, the art, the people who saw me for who I was, not for who they expected me to be. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. Mark showed up. I hadn't invited him. In fact, I didn't even want him there. But he came, as if he had a right to be part of this, as if he could walk into my life at any moment and remind me who I was, who he had made me. At first, I froze when I saw him. My mind immediately went into overdrive, my body bracing for whatever storm he was about to unleash. But as I scanned the room, looking for Lucas, I realized something important. I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't the terrified girl who had once cowered in his shadow. This time, I wasn't going to let him control me. I didn't go to him. Instead, I found Lucas standing by one of the paintings, his eyes catching mine as I approached. There was something in his gaze, gentle but firm, that made my chest tighten. He knew what I was about to do, and yet he didn't look scared. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I nodded, my hands trembling slightly as I forced myself to speak. I have to do this. I have to face him. It's the only way. Without another word, he gave me a slight nod, his expression one of understanding. And then I turned, walking toward Mark with all the resolve I could muster. "Mark," I said, my voice calm, but the anger was simmering beneath the surface. "What are you doing here?" His eyes met mine, that familiar smirk playing on his lips. "I came to see if you'd really go through with it. I wondered if you had it in you to make a life without me." I could feel the sting of his words, but this time, they didn't hold the power they once did. I took a deep breath, the weight of everything that had happened between us settling into a place of quiet clarity. "I don't need you anymore," I said, my voice steady. "And I never did. You don't get to control me. Not now, not ever again." Mark's face twisted into something close to fury, but he didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking at me like I had somehow betrayed him. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. "You think you've won, don't you?" he spat, his words laced with venom. "You think you can just walk away and never look back? You'll regret this, Sophie." But I didn't flinch. I didn't back down. "Maybe I will," I said quietly, my eyes never leaving his. "But I'll never regret leaving you behind." I turned and walked away, not looking back. I didn't need to see the look on his face. I didn't need to hear any more of his empty threats. What mattered now was that I had done it. I had taken back my power. I found Lucas again, standing at the edge of the gallery, his arms crossed as he watched me approach. Without saying a word, he wrapped me in a hug, holding me close, as if to reassure me that no matter what, I wasn't alone. "You're incredible," he said softly, his voice full of admiration. I pulled back slightly to look at him, the weight of everything we had been through settling between us. "I'm still figuring it out," I said, my voice a little shaky. "But I think I'm starting to believe that maybe I can do this. Maybe I can be enough." Lucas smiled, a smile that made everything feel lighter somehow. "You've always been enough, Sophie." For the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of the world start to lift. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't free from the past, from the choices I had made. But I had taken control. I had fought for my future, and for the first time, I could finally see the possibility of something better. As the night wore on and the crowd thinned, I found myself standing on the terrace again, looking out at the city. The lights of Paris flickered below me, a vast, shimmering sea of possibility. I wasn't done yet, but I was ready to keep going. I wasn't alone anymore, and for the first time, I felt like I could breathe. A year had passed, a year since everything changed, since I stood in front of that mirror and promised myself I would fight for my future. I wasn't who I used to be, not even close. The cafe was thriving, its walls full of life and color, each new piece of art telling its own story. It wasn't just a place to grab a coffee anymore. It had become a sanctuary, a home for people like me who needed to be seen, who needed a place where their truth wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated. I had learned that you don't just move on from the past. It doesn't vanish because you want it to. But that didn't mean it had to define you. I had learned that letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing to keep moving forward, no matter how painful it was. And for the first time, I felt the peace of knowing that I wasn't running anymore. As I stood behind the counter of the cafe, greeting customers with a smile that felt real, I felt a quiet joy inside me. I had built something real, something that was mine. I wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't pretending to be someone I wasn't. I was exactly who I needed to be. Lucas had become a constant in my life, his presence a grounding force. He never pushed, never demanded anything. He simply supported me, gave me the space I needed to find my own way. And that was more than I ever thought I deserved. I didn't need saving. I didn't need to be fixed. I just needed to be loved, to be understood. And Lucas gave me that, without hesitation. As I glanced out the window, watching the city go by, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Mark. He was walking down the street, his eyes scanning the crowd, and for a moment, our gazes locked. There was a flicker of recognition, a brief moment where everything between us hung in the balance, but I didn't feel that familiar weight in my chest. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel the urge to run or hide. I felt nothing. It wasn't that I had forgotten him. I had just realized that he no longer had any hold over me. He wasn't the thing that defined my worth, and for the first time, I could see him for what he was. Just another part of my past. The door to the cafe swung open, and I turned to see Lucas walking in, a gentle smile on his face as he made his way to the counter. He didn't need to say anything. His presence was enough. "How's your day?" he asked, his voice low and comforting. I smiled back, feeling the weight of the last year settle into a quiet peace. "Better than it ever has been." Lucas reached out, taking my hand, his touch warm, solid. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. Those words, "I'm proud of you," sounded simple, but to me, they meant everything. They meant that despite the darkness, despite the years of mistakes and pain, I had found my way. I had found my place. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't fixed. But I was whole in a way I had never thought possible. And that was enough. Later that evening, as the cafe emptied out, I sat on the terrace with Lucas, looking out at the twinkling lights of Paris. The city seemed to stretch endlessly in front of us, full of possibilities, full of life. "Do you ever think about what could have been?" I asked, my voice quiet but curious. "If things had turned out differently?" Lucas took a moment before answering, his eyes on the horizon. "I think about how everything led us here, and I'm glad it did. Because this is real." His words wrapped around me like a blanket, warm and reassuring. I didn't need to think about what could have been. I was here now. This was my life. And for the first time, I didn't want to change a thing. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the soft hum of the city below us, the cool evening air wrapping around us like a promise of something new. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I had finally found peace, and for the first time, I was truly free.